None of us ever know where we might need a savior. Sometimes things just happen, and we have no control over the outcome. Fitchburg High senior Audrey Johnson found out what it's like when people who were just doing their job can make a huge difference. In the blink of an eye, the 17-year-old student athlete was suddenly forced to battle for her life. One night last February, her car slid on the snow-covered roads, crashing through a chain-link fence and dropping down a 70-foot embankment, but the worst was yet to come. Landing upside down, the Jeep plunged into the frigid waters of the Phillips Brook. Audrey became trapped, hanging upside down, pinned in place by her seatbelt. Desperately, Audrey struggled to get free as the icy waters began to freeze her hands and feet. She eventually managed to climb from the vehicle and got to the snow-covered embankment, but was then faced with a 70-foot rocky cliff covered in ice and snow, an impossible climb.
That night, we got a call for what seemed like a standard accident for a car off the road. We had recently gotten snow, so the roads were slick. Myself, I was the deputy that night, our ladder truck, and an engine. You know, at first they had trouble locating the vehicle because they said someone was off the road, but as soon as they looked down into the embankment, which was about 60, 70 feet down, they noticed that a car was down there on its roof. Very cold temperatures that night. We were worried about hypothermia. She had apparently been down there for about 45 minutes before anybody found her. And we're worried about people of all ages, but you know, someone that's younger, either like a pediatric or a young adult, you know, you automatically, you know, in the back of your mind, this person has their whole life ahead of them. We had to travel down a steep embankment, and then there was about another 15-foot drop-off to the point where before we could get to the car. You know, you try to train the best you can for the calls that you go on, but some calls are unexpected, you know, and that was a call that we don't get too often. We're going to do the same job for everybody, but again, I can understand why people would get, you know, a little bit more emotional because it's a younger person, you know, that has their whole life ahead of them.
Well, this is a great opportunity to talk about Audrey and really the pride that she brings to the school community and this experience that she had. As a school system, we knew a lot about Audrey in terms of her academics, in terms of her athletic ability, and you know, you figure when you've got an athlete of that type and an academic young person of that type that persistence and a grit is a part of who they are. And what this experience has really shown is that, you know, those characteristics that make Audrey the great student that she is, you know, came to play in this situation.
Come on, don't stand around. Let's go. Let's get to work.
I think it reflects on the community and how the community being ready, because we had the right people at the right place at the right time. You know, one of our treasured students, you know, was able to receive the help that she needed when she needed it most, and really allow her to continue on in the great career that I know is waiting for her.
Well, I remember I was home. It was Friday night. It was later on. I was home with my son, in fact, and we were watching Pete's Dragon. I can specifically tell you because I was getting ready to get him to bed, and I started to get phone calls and messages that, you know, one of our students had gone off the road and potentially into either the Nashua River or a body of water. And so, you know, of course now I was calling the school resource officer. I was getting in touch with people. I soon learned it was Audrey. Again, for the next half hour, 45 minutes, you know, I was in touch with 5 or 6 different people, the superintendent, the VPs here, you know, a number of other folks, and until we finally, you know, got some confirmation that she was, you know, recovered and saved and ultimately transported to the hospital, was going to be okay. You know, I called her parents at that point to just let them know that, you know, we were concerned about her, whatever she, you know, was dealing with, the school would work with them, not to worry about that, focus on recovery and all those things. And yeah, it was terrifying. You know, anytime that comes up, it's terrifying, you know, as a school and as a person who represents the school, you know, who would find out about it. You know, and like I said, I could tell you exactly where I was sitting and what I, you know, was doing even. That's how vividly I remember it. You know, when we started to hear the details of it, it was just startling too. You know, the gravity of the situation became even more real, you know, when the details emerged. You know, I think everybody's reaction here was, you know, one of relief that she was okay and that she was going to be okay, and that, you know, we'd support what she needed, you know, as a student and as a person in the school. And I think that was universal in every interaction I had with people about it over the next period of weeks.
It's traumatic being in any kind of a car accident, let alone one to the nature that she was in. And she fought to get herself back into competition shape, you know, being able to participate in softball, compete in volleyball, compete in track. And you know, it was funny because it wasn't something we really ever talked about, her accident or coming back from it. She didn't make a really big deal about it. She just kind of plugged along and did what she needed to do to get back into softball and, you know, to be a teammate in volleyball and track. And it was as we were getting ready for districts, the day before districts again, she came up to me and she goes, "Oh, I'm getting my ears pierced tomorrow." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Well, when?" Because we have a track meet. And she goes, "Oh, you know, like in the morning, I think." She goes, "It's my anniversary." And I'm like, "Oh my God, Audrey, I wasn't even thinking about that." And she goes, "Yeah, so I'm going to celebrate my anniversary getting my ears pierced. You know, it's going to mark the occasion. I'm going to do something joyful." And then she came to the meet, and you know, we're all competing. She had a huge monster PR. She was throwing great all week, and we knew it was within limits, 29.775, and so we knew that she was right. You know, something good was going to happen, and we'd been aiming for 30 feet for a long while. Like, you can do it. There's a little line right in our field house where 30 feet is, and I'm like, "You're so close to the line. You're so close to the line," and she did it. Like, she threw a huge PR, and you know, just thinking about how everybody was around her and how she just kind of really was like, I am taking back this date. You know, like, really in my mind was very symbolic of like how she kind of addressed coming back from the whole accident. And I thought, what better way to kind of celebrate her efforts during the track season. And I mean, she was a leader in the shot put. She was a senior shot putter. She really kind of tried to take care of all the underclassmen. You know, she's like a role model type of senior that you want to have on your team. I thought it would be a nice recognition if she received the award.
I was over at my friend's house, and I was driving to my other friend's house to go sleep over because she also lived closer to where Fitchburg High was, and I had a track meet the next day, so I'm like, "Oh, perfect, I just sleep over your house and whatever, just go to the track meet. I don't have to wake up early. Perfect." And so I was driving, and the roads were treated to one point when I was leaving his house, but then what happened was once I hit the hill part, the roads were snowed down. Everything was like pitch white. You couldn't even see the roads. Those parts weren't treated at all. So I obviously slowed down. Everything was fine. I was under the speed limit, and then what happened was my tires caught the ice and I started skidding, and my car would not stop, and all I remember seeing was a fence, and I remember my car hitting, and I remember just going down in my car, and I had to put my hands on the wheel. I pushed off right away because it felt like I was in a roller coaster, just going straight down. I don't know exactly if I was unconscious or not, but all I remember is I woke up upside down in my car. Everything was backwards to me because you're upside down. and I remember feeling water rushing through my head. My automatic reaction when you're in a car upside down and you hear water and it's all in your car, my automatic reaction is I'm gonna sink. I'm sinking, I need to get out of the car. And then I finally relax, I look to my left and right, it's just river water flowing. I'm perfectly fine, I'm not gonna sink, everything's perfectly okay. And so I calm myself down and all I could think of, I need to get out of the car. That's the first step, just get out of the car. I took the key out of the ignition, I popped it in the seatbelt, and I got out. The back seat window was actually completely shattered, no glass whatsoever in sight on it, so I climbed out the back window. I got out of the car and I tried actually climbing the embankment. At this point, my shoes and socks are all off because they fell off as I'm climbing out. And I'm not gonna go back from like too late, I'm not gonna go back in the car. I was very close to actually getting up, but I couldn't because my body temperature kept lowering due to how cold it was. So I'm just like, okay, we're gonna try another way. So I tried the second way, and that was even steeper and it wouldn't even work. I was starting to lose consciousness because of how cold it was. And so I'm like, oh, that way it only went to my knee, it's perfectly fine. So second step again, just went to my knee. Third step, still to my knee. My fourth step, my whole body slipped into the rock and I went completely down into the water and submerged. Like, I was starting to like give up on myself because I was probably stuck down there for like an hour at that point. I was starting to give up because I was just so cold, I couldn't feel anything. And so I just rested my hands on the rock and I just sat there. I do remember people shouting and saying, where is she, where is she, who are you, like just trying to figure out what happened. They actually had to have 7 people push me up and 7 people pull me to just get me up. So that's all I remember was that part, is just being lifted. I just remember being lifted in the board. But all I remember is seeing just white lights, just white. All I could think of was, I need to do the sport. I need to go back to what I'm doing. So a week out of it, I couldn't do anything. I was limited. I couldn't even pick up a fork. I had to have someone feed me sometimes, but I like slowly like started just, I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna try holding a fork again. I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to feed myself again. And I'm like, I wanna hold a bat again. I'm gonna hold a softball. I want this to be like an inspiration to kids, because you hear this all the time, like a kid breaks their ankle or they go through surgery and they're like, oh, I can't play this sport anymore. Hi!
You look a little different.
Yeah, a little different.
It was really cool actually being able to visit them again, because you don't usually get to see the people who actually really helped you through the process and like made this like possible for me to be here today. Like, if it wasn't for them, like I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Well, hey, it was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Good luck.
Thank
We're happy you're feeling well.
Thank you. Thank you.